Let's see. All right. And we are good to go. So do me a favor and just state your name, um, and then what you do, and then um, what is your connection to North Nashville?
Well, I'm D Revolution, poet, author, entrepreneur. My connection is to Jefferson Street is where this is where everything began. My poetry, filmmaking, and things like that. I originally moved to Nashville from Chicago, and I lived. My first place that I ever lived in Nashville was on Meharry, which is a street over from Jefferson Street. And from there, I just really started to learn um, many things about Jefferson from there. Because Gigi's was right behind my house, and that's really where I started, and a lot of us poets really began. That's really Gigi's was so important in Jefferson Street because it really set off a trend of a lot of things to come many years later. So that's really that's how it began.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. And I've heard about the legendary Kijiji, so we definitely gonna have a hit on that at some point in this interview for sure.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
but yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself. Like what's your history? What's
Well,
your story?
my history is I'm from Chicago, born and raised. I initially I didn't start off this way. I didn't start off as a poet. I became a poet. Poetry came looking for me. I started off in the streets of Chicago doing what a lot of young black men do. I was gang banging, I was selling drugs, and my brother came to Nashville to go to school, and he kept asking me to come to Nashville. And finally, my mom passed away, and finally, I just really had nowhere to turn. And I said, well, maybe I can go to Nashville to visit. To visit Nashville, I would go there to visit, and maybe something happened. So I came down here, got me a job. I was at Target for a little while, and I was at a car wash, and I hooked up with my brother. And then I ended up meeting somebody who got me a job in the corporate office. So I went back to Chicago, grabbed my things, and came back down here to work that job, and I've been here ever since. Um, and it was probably one of the best things I've done in my life because what Nashville was able to do, particularly North Nashville, I was able to slow down and really look at my life and really start writing. It was quiet. It's never quiet in Chicago. It was quiet, and I was able to really put my thoughts on paper, and one thing led to another until the day I walked in Kajiji's and did my first poem. And I met several people early on that would be friends, lifelong friends, like Binky, Miss Pearl, and Michael L. Rest in peace. He just passed away. Michael L. was the host of Kaji's at the time, and actually, I think Michael L. is the first person that I actually met because he was into films too. He had moved up here from L.A. and he was big in the theater scene, but he was also writing scripts and stuff, and I was writing screenplays at the time. So we talked, and he was also the host of Kajiji's when we was doing poetry, when Tia and all of us was there, Church, all of those people, and so rest in peace. He passed. Michael L. passed maybe like 4 days ago, 4 or 5 days ago.
Oh
So
man.
yeah. So that was my man. So so really that's really like the beginning story of D Revolution. It starts with Jefferson Street.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Well, so let me ask you. So I know that we've Kajiji's has popped up many times, and so to me, because I'm much later to the scene, and so Kajiji's is kind of what I hear is this hallmark place of just greatness. But in your words, like put the listener up to speed. Like, tell us about Kajiji's and what was the magic there.
You know what? Kajiji's, man, it makes me smile because at the time I didn't know that Kajiji's was not even extravagant or fancy or nothing like that. It was just a place where you went to speak your words and do poetry and things like that. It wasn't until many years later that you realize that how much came from that. I spoke of Tia earlier. Tia really became one of the best performers in spoken word that Nashville has ever seen. But she started at Kajiji's. You talk. I mentioned Binky. Binky was the first person that had really an influence on me. Miss Pearl. You talk about just Michael L. So many people started at Kajiji's because Kajiji's had enough foresight, insight to understand to bring in poets. I think Miss one of the owners of Kajiji's was a poet herself. So it wasn't a popular thing at the time. Kajiji's was not popular because poetry, spoken word, was not popular at the time. Yeah. So the fact that we will all find ourselves there on a Friday night doing poetry, you really don't see until years later how Kajiji's really played a huge factor in everything that went on after it. Everything, even up until now. Even if you see somebody doing a poetry venue, I guarantee you there's some connection to Kajiji's. If you see some youngsters doing some a poetry venue, there's some connection to Kajiji's. And some of the best poets came from that particular cafe. And so, I play a lot of homage to Kajiji's because of that. I cannot say I could be the man who I am today without Kajiji's being the cafe that they was back then. I really hate when it actually closed, I'm talking about the first location of Kajiji's. They had two locations. They closed one and reopened another. I was at the first location, the location with Michael L. Both locations is really legendary, but I was there with the first location. And I actually, just to get a little bit deeper into the poetry scene on Jefferson Street, well, the poetry scene in Nashville, period, but it still comes back to Jefferson Street. That was the first poetry spot. And please, anybody who can rebuke this or say I'm wrong, please let me know. But the first poetry spot in Nashville was a place called The Spot. Now, The Spot was done by a woman named Kim Stager. Kim Stager was from New York, but she was here going to school. Mm-hmm. And they called it The Spot because every time they did an event, it was at a different spot. So they called it The Spot. It wasn't at one particular location, and the one thing Kim Stager did then that was really revolutionary, here's a flyer from The Spot right here. She actually, this is before the internet and all that, so she used to mail these invitations out. This was she used to sell this out. It's a little folded flyer. She used to sell this. She would not sell it. She would mail it out, and you would get an invitation in the mail for the next event that was going on. That was really the first event that I knew of where I discovered spoken word. And then at the same time, Kajiji's was doing something on Friday nights, but The Spot was more like a lively crowd. You could drink and you could do whatever you wanted to do there. You know what I'm saying? It was more of a lively type of event. Kajiji's was kind of more of a subtle, kind of calm cafe. You know what I'm saying? They didn't have liquor in there. You weren't able to really kick. You just really went there to do poetry. So both of these things was going on at the same time. And then on Jefferson Street, out of The Spot and Kajiji's, you had somebody by the name of Shireen Whitfield who did the Poets Underground. The Poets Underground was at Sir Pizza, right across from what we call Kingdom Cafe today. Mm-hmm. It's called Nothing But Wings now, but that used to be Sir Pizza. And Shireen Whitfield had just moved here from LA, and she started the Poets Underground. It was very successful, very successful. So she did that on Wednesday nights, and so people would go to the Poets more the younger crowd went to the Poets Underground on Wednesdays, and some of the older people went to Kajiji's on Fridays. But the Poets Underground really played a huge part on Jefferson Street in terms of artistic, artists and things like that. And from there, I started a poetry event that I was doing on Thursdays at Mama Lil's, which was on Meharry, right behind Citizens Bank, upstairs. I started doing that event, and again, that was just another event. But what what I want people to understand, the spot grew into Kajiji's being successful. Kajiji's grew into the Poets Underground, and the Poets Underground grew into Mama Lil's being successful. And one thing led to another up until now, where I don't know if you know about this, but you have the Soul Food Poetry Cafe that is doing big things. Well, was doing big things before the virus.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying? And to see spoken word on the level that Imani has been doing it at the City Winery. This is spoken word at the City Winery. She pulling in 300 people at $25 for spoken word. Never
Yeah.
heard of. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? I always tell Imani when we talk, every now and then when we talk, that she's doing something with spoken word that I never seen, because I had to really fight to get into some venues. And the fact that she was able to get in the City Winery and not only get in there, but to do spoken word and sell 300 tickets at $25. And sometimes it's even 30, 35, depending on if it's a holiday or not. But the truth of the matter is, I had never seen it, because I just have to convince venue owners to let me in, because they didn't know what spoken word was. They didn't know what poetry was. And but the seed of it started from Jefferson Street. That is the thing that I want everybody to understand. Everything started from Jefferson Street up until the point where I had my book signing for my first book, 2018. And I remember making the speech in there saying that the first poem I did was on Jefferson Street. I'm releasing my book, and and I'm ending my 20-year run on Jefferson Street. And I felt good about that, because Jefferson Street was really an instrumental part of the revolution you see today. I cannot ignore what Jefferson Street has meant to me.
Yeah. And that's super powerful. That is super powerful. So let me ask you. So I guess one thing that I want to talk to everybody that I interview about. So it's like, of course, we have North Nashville, and in today's time, there's a lot of negative, bad press that gets wrapped up in North Nashville. Whether it's like that 37208 is like the highest incarcerated zip code, or that dealing with like the negative effects of gentrification, or dealing with the over policing, dealing with the tornado, all these different things. But I think it's really interesting because so I've been in Nashville for about uh, 23 years, but I lived in Antioch up until maybe like a year and a half ago. And I moved to North Nashville. Um, and Antioch doesn't have a good reputation out there. But then moving to North Nashville and just really being able to like get my hands deep into the soil here and realizing how rich this area is, and also realizing that it's not at all like the stigmas or the stereotypes that people try to peg it as. Um, what would you? How do you look at, or how do you define North Nashville?
When you talk about crime and things like that, North Nashville, it's not a surprise to me that some of the most talented people in the history that North Nashville have, Jefferson Street, that now it's considered a high crime rate. It just seems like that is done on purpose, and it has been orchestrated to be that way, because I am a guy from Chicago, and I know what high crime look like. And the truth of the matter is, if they're stating that 37208 is high crime, and you got TSU, you got Fisk, you got Meharry, all in the 307 37208 area zip code. I'm sorry. And they're claiming it always seems it's going to be a opposition to the success of what has gone on in North Nashville for many years. It's always going to seem to be somebody or a community that's going to say, okay, it's not as good as y'all think it is. This, and this. But nobody talks about the great poets that came over North Nashville. Nobody talk about the Kijijis. Nobody talk about Michael L's and the people, the Jefferson Street poet, or you don't hear a lot about that, but you want to hear about many of the crimes or this happened during homecoming at TSU, but we don't really value the real history that I've seen personally, that I was a part of, the real history that was a part of Jefferson Street and what people were doing. And I don't think that's by accident. I really think that just like anything else, they use negative images and negative things to overshadow what's really going on. Because if everybody that I've met come back to Jefferson Street today, it would be a wonderful reunion and it would be fun. Jefferson Street, North Nashville has been nothing but good to me. I've never seen a crime on Jefferson Street or in North Nashville, and I lived there for many years. And I only can go by what the news say. But I personally, as many years as I've lived there, I've never seen any violence. I've never seen anything wrong. All I've seen was Black-owned businesses on in North Nashville, and all I've ever seen is great talent. And I've learned a lot being from Jefferson Street. So really, the only people that to me that will believe that are the people that's never been a part of North Nashville and never been a part of that. They will only be able to go by what the news tell you that's going on over there. But personally, from Jefferson to Buchanan, I've never witnessed anything, and I've been there for many, many years. I've been in Nashville about as long as you have. I'm sure I'm older than you. I've been here like 20. I moved here in '96, so I've been here like 20 something odd years, and most of those years were spent in North Nashville.
Yeah, and so that means that your track record with North Nashville runs deep.
Yeah, man, it does, man. And you know what? It's something that I'm proud to put on my resume. It really is, man. It's really something I'm proud to put on my resume because at the end of the day, man, I still, find myself in that area. I'm comfortable in that area because when I moved here from Chicago, that's the area that I lived in. It was really my stomping ground. Uh, Again, gentrification, is really starting to, it's funny. I don't want to sound really prejudiced when I say this, but when I see Caucasians jogging down the street of Jefferson Street, it's something that I always look back and like, damn, it's like that now, because I didn't come up where you see, people of a different race jogging down Jefferson Street like it's a greenway or something. And so
Yeah.
it's actually pretty funny to me when I see people, certain people jogging down Jefferson Street, because it lets me know that the community has changed a bit and gentrification is um, starting to set in, and slowly we are losing that history and
Oh, I think you froze on me.
I'm sorry. Oh,
Okay. I think you're
good now?
there we go. Okay. You froze
Okay.
on me for a second.
Okay. So, it lets me know. I feel that some of that history is starting to slowly get lost about, I was listening to your other interview about Jimi Hendrix and all those people that's visited Jefferson Street. I remember playing a James Brown CD, and I looked at the bottom of the CD and it said recorded in Nashville. So these people actually, a lot of these great legends would come here and record music. I remember looking at this James Brown, and actually he mentions Nashville in one of his songs. He called it Nashville, Johnny Cashville. And I don't know if that's where the Cashville came from, but he said that in one of his songs. So I was like, okay, did Cashville come from Johnny Cash? I mean, just things like that, really looking up, just really just seeing that, not even looking for that information, just playing some James Brown one day and seeing that it said recording in 1976 was done in Nashville, Tennessee, was it amazed me, and I heard about Jimi Hendrix even before I seen the interview, being on Jefferson Street. I heard about
Hmm.
that, and the Ritz Theater. And these are things that was going on before I moved here. The Ritz Theater, all these things. A lot of people talk about the farmers market. I used to work there. Farmers market always been a good landmark for Nashville. So, I'm very passionate about it, man.
Yeah. So I know that you mentioned quite a few people that you were connected with, or that were like key players in like the spoken word scene. Um, and when you moved here, who were like the influential people that left like a lasting impression in your life? Whether it was like within the art scene, whether it was in the community. Um,
Um, the person that made the really a strong impact to me was Binky. Binky made a strong impact on me. Not that she was like, what I'm saying, Binky was just very simple about her shit. I'm sorry, I'm in the curse.
are you good? You
Binky,
good?
Binky was very simple, and she said what she needed to say with poetry, and I liked that. She, what I'm saying, and I understood what she was talking about. So she probably was the most. Oh, and maybe Shireen Whitfield as well, the one that did the Poets Underground. Because back then, Shireen was like the hottest poet in the city. Everybody wanted a piece of her at that time. You know what I'm saying? She was influential. She was very talented, very a great artist, just very talented. And that was before the D-Revolutions came on. I was still learning at that time. I was still kind of scared reading off paper and things like that. I really came up later, but the people I watched back then was two females that really, really, really impressed me and really inspired me, was Shireen and Binky, and then later when I saw poets like poets that just came through here who only lived here for maybe a few months, like Jay Ivy. Jay Ivy came through. I don't know if you know who he is, but
Hmm.
Jay Ivy is a poet. He's been on songs with Kanye West. He's been on songs with Jay-Z and Kanye West. Sometimes you see him on a commercial. Sometimes, I mean, he's really made a name for himself overall in the poetry industry. He's been on HBO, Def Jam Poets. And he lived here probably about 8 or 9 months. I don't know, maybe about a year. He stayed here. So he came here and he made a huge impression on me. And then so I would say those were the people that really, really said, okay, I want to take this stuff serious, along with the respect I have for Church. Church was another one. He lives in South Carolina now, but Church was definitely one of the pioneers of the poetry scene here in Nashville. He was actually one of the main pioneers. Me and Church had always had a great relationship, but I always respected him. Um, and I respect him as one of the pioneers of the poetry scene today, because he was really big on that. And then I became one of the pioneers as well. But the people I looked at the most was Binky and Shireen. And there was a poet by the name of Roz that I believe lived in Clarksville at the time, but he used to come to Nashville to perform. It was a poet by the name of Roz that really inspired me as well, that really got me to really taking my craft seriously. But Binky was really was the first poet that I looked at and said, I can do that. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that. You know what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
until this day, I try to keep Binky a part of everything that I do.
And that's good. That's good. Okay, so we're back to recording now. But
Okay.
yeah, that's super dope. So let me ask you, in your time in Nashville and just the things that you've experienced in North Nashville on Jefferson Street, what is like? Tell me about one of your favorite memories?
I can't say it's a favorite memory, but it's a memory, and it really has nothing to do with spoken word. I remember being out, just hanging out on Jefferson Street when TSU was going back to school in front of Harper's, which is now Kingdom Cafe, just hanging out and watching the cars drive down the street and hanging out with friends and because I had no experience with the college life and the TSU life and the fact this is what they did here, hanging out with my brother and some of his friends while people were coming back to school and everybody was on Jefferson Street and playing music and having fun. And what I'm saying, that's one of my memories, just being on Jefferson Street, that sticks out to me. And it's funny, one thing I want to mention, my brother lived here before I did. So my brother would come back to home to Chicago. He had already been living here for a couple of years. And it's funny because I had a friend over to the house that him and her, she knew about Nashville. And I learned about Hatley Park before I even moved here.
Mm-hmm.
Hatley Park was a conversation that they had before I even came here. I had heard about Hatley Park in Chicago. So when I got here and I seen, I was like, oh, that's Hatley Park. They was talking about Hatley Park and all the things that went on in Hatley Park. Now this conversation is taking place in Chicago. I didn't know what the hell they was talking about at the time because I had never been here. But
Yeah.
I never forgot the name, and I remember she's like, yeah, I got family in Nashville. He was like, yeah. And they just started talking. They started talking about Hatley Park and things like that. So when I got here, I was like, oh, okay. I get to see Hatley Park and see all the good things they were saying about it. So, so just so people for Nashvilleians to know, Hatley Park, North Nashville travels because it traveled that day before I even got here. They talked about Harper's and Hatley Park and things like that. And I had no idea what they were talking about. And I was still in Chicago at the time. So, Nashville, North Nashville does travel because I experienced it myself. But my personal experience is really hanging out on Jefferson with the college students and just having fun out there, just laughing, drinking beer, having fun. That's probably my biggest memory of being on Jefferson.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so like if you had to, I don't know, if you had to like describe or like have some things that you would like people that are not from North Nashville to know about North Nashville, what would be those things?
North Nashville, and it's kind of a biased question. North Nashville is just really special. It's special because there are three historic schools right off of Jefferson Street, right off in Nashville, North Nashville, and all of the wonderful people and talent that I've met always seems to come from North Nashville, or always seems to somehow be led to North Nashville. You know what I'm saying? It's like I've met different people from different parts of the city, but everybody's led to North Nashville. So there's something special about North. And when you think about it, North Nashville, when you talk about North Nashville, East Nashville, it's like North Nashville is I don't know. It's not like East Nashville. North Nashville has a kind of a vibe of its own.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I noticed that very early on when I moved here is that people in East Nashville, I'm not disrespecting people in East Nashville, but they talk differently. It was just a little bit of a different attitude. People in North Nashville, it just seemed like North Nashville was more where I was trying to be as a man. It was just more on a conscious, more socially and political awareness in North Nashville with the people. And that could be because of the schools. Yeah, it could be. I don't know. But it just seemed like North Nashville always was the area where you could really be political and talk about conscious things and be comfortable around the people talking about those things because everybody was seeming to be on that. I didn't necessarily feel I still don't necessarily feel that way when I go into other parts of the city. North Nashville definitely seems to be all about consciousness and awareness. And I think that's where I was trying to go when I moved here. And that is I don't know. Damn, I don't know if I'm answering your question or not. I'm
Oh,
getting
that's
off.
good. No, that's good.
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah. So, yeah, man. That's how I look at that. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And I know I got to talk to you at the Jefferson Street Cafe. This was some years ago now.
Yeah. About 3 years ago.
Yeah, that's crazy. It doesn't feel like it's been that long, but
No, I don't. I remember meeting you. I remember meeting you, man. I actually seen you perform after that. I don't know where. I don't remember where though. I don't know if it was. Did you perform at the African Street Festival?
I did. I did.
So I think maybe I seen you perform there after I met you. I seen you perform there maybe a year later or but I never forgot you. And the thing about is speaking of the African Street Festival, that was another thing that was great for North Nashville. I had some of my best memories of going to the African Street Festival when they was doing it at TSU early on. Then they started doing it in Hatley Park. But I cannot tell you how much fun and how at home I used to feel at the African Street Festival. Rest in peace to Kwame. He passed away from the virus, but shout out to his legacy and what he's been able to do with the African Street Festival for over 30 years. And I hope that it continues, But African Street Festival played a huge part in in my memories here in Nashville. And the fact that it was held again, it goes back to that consciousness. It was only held in North Nashville. It didn't go to Centennial Park or it didn't go to no other parts of the city. It was held in North Nashville. African Street Festival was held in North Nashville again. It's like something about North Nashville that draws in consciousness and it draws in awareness down to a Kibulon bookstore. That's the one thing that's been consistent since I've been in Nashville is that bookstore right there on 28th. Is that, that bookstore, when I moved here, that bookstore was there and it's still there and it's still open. And it's really a historic landmark at this point. So I mean, all those things that has been really great to really learn. I used to sell my at one point, I sold my spoken word CD inside a Kibulon bookstore. So, I just remember all that. I remember those things, and those things meant a lot to me. Along with the college crib and all of those things over there. I'm glad to see them there. I hate to see that Knockout Wings is not there, but yeah, I definitely have strong ties to North Nashville, Jefferson Street, and I grew up there. I'm from Chicago, but I became a man in North Nashville.
Yeah. Yeah. And that right there is powerful because I know being here, I'm like, man, if I could go back and tell my dad to move to North Nashville instead of Antioch, I would have been like, yo, this is the move.
Yeah, and I also feel like that the universe, it was a call that I ended up there when I came in because that's where I needed to be. I would not be the man today had I not lived on Meharry when I first moved here. Had I not, I lived, Kaji's was right behind my house. So everything was set up for me to thrive and succeed according to the environment I came from. So everything was really set up, and I knew it wasn't nothing but the universe really placing me where I needed to be to become a poet and to meet some of the people that I've met. You know what I'm saying? People that I still have relationships until this day. Like Sean Whistle, like Tia, like Binky. You know what I'm saying? I have a relationship even with Shy. People that I met later. That I somewhat have a relationship. I mean, these are not 1 to 2 years. These are 15, 20-year relationships that I have. And shout out to John Wiggins and Michael L. I know I mentioned him earlier. I hadn't talked to Michael L. in some years, but he was also instrumental in. I used to be roommates with Michael L. He was instrumental to a lot of things. Michael L. have said a lot of wise things to me, and for him to just pass a few days ago, I just remember that he had a lot of wisdom, and he played an instrumental part in everything that I spoke about. Michael L. played an instrumental part of all. I haven't seen him in years. I haven't talked to him, but he still is very relevant to um, my life and some of the things that I want to become as a man and as a poet, because he's a poet as well. He's a playwright, but he was a poet. He started off as a poet. So, I got a chance to really, deal with Michael L. and get to know him, and I feel he really plays a part of my history, plays a part in Nashville history. And the thing that's sad about it, you would never see Michael L. Walker in a newspaper. And that's what I mean. You would never, the city would never pay homage to a guy like that, or maybe some other important people, but they were very important to our existence as poets and people that's really trying to do things and raise, awareness to our community and really, you know what I'm saying? And so them the people, Michael L. Walker, Chaos, so many people that we really need to pay homage to, you know what I'm saying? And Chaos is not passed away, but absolutely, why, like you said, give people their flowers while they can smell them. You know what I'm saying? There's so many people that does so much. Now I feel like I gotta give a shout out to everybody. Diallo, people that play the small part, Sleep, Imani, absolutely. Just so many people that has played their part. Even though like Rashad and all of the cats came later, they still held the tradition up after I had got older, and what I'm saying, after church wasn't here no more, they still held it down for us who really, kind of kicked that door in, the
Mm-hmm.
Rashads and other members of NPG and things like that. It was just a lot, a lot of people that really participated in uh keeping North Nashville a powerful spot. Now, what's confusing to me now is that I really don't know a whole lot about what's going on in North Nashville now, because I've been removed from North Nashville for quite a while. But my heart and my feelings about it is the same. And when I ride down Jefferson Street now, I see a lot of gentrification, a lot of new things, and I still see some of the old things. And sometimes, like right off Charlotte, between Charlotte and Jefferson, I actually got kind of lost because they put so much new stuff up. I didn't understand. I didn't understand where I was. I'm like, man, when they put this here, when they put this here, and this and that. So it's slowly diminishing, man, and it's almost sad. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's like seeing a relative die of a slow death. It really is.
Yeah.
But you know, but interviews like this will keep it going, man. Stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And the whole purpose of this project is just like to be a form of peace to remind people that like, North Nashville is the ground that we stand on. Like this is sacred hollow ground. And it's not just something for you to come in and just be like, oh, this is a nice area. Let me put a Whole Foods here or something. But like,
a lot of
you
history
know,
there, and you know
yeah,
what? It's a lot of history there, and you know what? I went and got this thing. Can you see this?
yeah.
This is like all the these are flyers to a lot of things that went on Jefferson Street. This is when Jay Ivy was in town. I mean, it's just a lot of stuff in here. I would keep track. This is at Mama Lil's. A lot of people that I mentioned. Saul Williams was in town. A lot of this stuff, man, it's historic, man. Cobalt Blue. I don't know.
Oh
Do you know
yeah.
about Cobalt
Oh yeah.
Cobalt Blue? Um,
Brother Matthew, yeah.
yeah, no doubt. Shireen, myself. No, that's Georgia Me. Just different flyers, man. This flyer right here is from 2003. But the first flyer, well, I don't know where it is, but the first flyer is from 1996. So it's been going on a long time, and it got a lot of people names that I mentioned on these flyers, the
Mm-hmm.
Tias and some people that just came through town, Georgia Me, Abyss, Afro Pig, people that was really doing stuff off of Jefferson Street. You know what I'm saying? And it's just endless, man. And this ain't even everything. This is Kay Danielle. She was a writer for the Rage. I don't know if you remember the Rage, the paper, the
Mm-mm.
Rage when it came out. She was a writer. This is an article that she wrote. Kay Danielle, she's a big part of the things that was going on. It's just so much stuff, man. I knew I couldn't really get into every single flyer, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to show this, man, because really this is really going to solidify. People look back at the history. They'll be able to look at this portfolio that I kept and be able to say, wow, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is J. Ivy performing, and J. Ivy is a big deal. It's several people that's on here that went on to do bigger and better things. And so I kept this thing, half the pages are falling out because they're not in here, but um, all of this stuff, man, is historic to people like Cobalt Blue and Binky and Shireen and Imani and you know what I'm saying? Because all of them are somewhere in here, you know what I'm saying? Even uh here is a magazine, based off some of the artists here in Nashville. I know T is on the cover of one of these. But this is what people were doing. They were doing magazines and paper, newspapers and stuff based on the artistic scene in North Nashville. I got a magazine around here. I seen it earlier today where Sean Whistle was like the editor of this magazine. I don't know where it went. I just seen it earlier today where
Yeah.
he
I
was
might.
the editor of this magazine. He interviewed me, and I still have that magazine. So, it's just not, it wasn't just talent. People were actually trying to really reach more of a masses of the people with journalism and really, black owned magazines and trying to do things, radio stations. There was so many people that I know that did events or did shows at Fizz radio station. I remember being interviewed up there. I mean, so it's really, I really used to call Nashville, especially back in the late 90s and early 2000s, like the Renaissance, like kind of like the Harlem Renaissance, because everybody was doing something. There was no competition. Everybody was just trying to have a voice. You know what I'm saying? Everybody was having a voice, and we all worked together, and we all, we still do that some today. We all built off each other to try to do what we aspired to do. So I wanted to write films and do films, and that's how I met Sean Whistle. I wanted to do poetry. I started doing poetry. That's how I met Binky and Shireen, and I recorded. I have 3 spoken word CDs, and it continued to be a domino effect of what we did starting in the late 90s. And as you probably can tell, I get excited talking about it, man, because I don't often get a chance to talk about the history. I don't often get a chance to talk about North Nashville, but man, it's been so good to me, man, that I feel like that I have to be a part of this project, my obligation,
Oh yeah.
because it's been so much and I've seen so much and I soaked in all that information. You know what I'm saying? I think the first time I did poetry was in 1999. It's 2021 now. So I've seen a lot and I've been through a lot dealing with venue owners and meeting people, but it's been good. It's been fun, man. And, absolutely, I feel personal to this project and definitely want to be a part of it. So,
Cool. I got one more question for you. So if you had to take North Nashville and how you conceptualize it in your mind, right? You had to sum up your perspective, your connection, your relationship, your history to North Nashville in 3 words.
whew, I don't know, man. I don't know if I can put that in 3 words, but I would say talent would be a word. consciousness would be another word, and I don't want to sound cliche, but love would be the third word because those are the things that I experienced over the years. Those are things that I've seen some of the most talented people on Jefferson Street, and I've gotten a huge amount of conscious people, consciousness from Jefferson, and and that was a time that it was all love. It really was, and it really made me look at things differently. Just how, just like Matthew from Cobalt Blue. We don't talk a lot, but when we do talk, because we were both, I've been knowing Matthew now probably for 20 years, you know what I'm saying, or whatever, but it's still that genuine love and respect for each other's work. I've done a lot of shows with Cobalt Blue, and I talked to Matthew maybe a month ago, and the fact that he's still doing that and he's still trying to do Cobalt Blue and still performing, and I'm still out here grinding. I'm writing books and stuff now, but the fact that I'm still grinding and doing my thing artistically, when I talk to him, there's a genuine love there because we seen each other, just constantly come up in terms of what we were doing. And I'm just happy to still see him around. So he sounds pretty happy to still see me around, and we're able to have a genuine conversation because you just don't really get genuine conversations that much anymore, especially if you have somebody that's trying to do what you've already done. They usually people are trying to compete with you, or they're trying to so they can do it better.
Mm-hmm.
But the people who was there from the beginning understands that the humility of what we do plays a huge part in the success. And that's a conversation between me and Matthew, is that being humble and the humility of how hard it's been, you know what I'm saying? And none of us rich, ain't none of us sitting up here balling out or nothing like that. But the humility in what we did and what we were doing, we didn't know at the time that we were setting a goal for people to come behind us. I didn't know who Rashad was back in Sir Visa. You know what I'm saying? But I was really impressed when he came in and hustled and did what he did or whatever. I really respect what he do. You know what I'm saying? But you know what? Shireen Binky, Matthew, myself, all of us was there before somebody like Rashad came in and started doing his thing. And Jay Ivy came in and added another element. But Jay Ivy's from Chicago too, lived in New York for a while. And then I'm sitting here listening to a Kanye West song, and he's on the song with Jay-Z and Kanye. That's a big deal for spoken word. But anyway, not to get too far off the subject, I would simply say those three words: talent, love, and consciousness is how I would look at Jefferson Street.
Perfect. Perfect. And I think that those are very well fitting words. Well,
Yeah.
man, thank you again for the interview. Of course, we're excited to hear what comes out of your spoken word piece for the interview that you're watching and creating from as well. And yeah, and of course, if you need anything else, just feel free to give me a shout.
All right, man. Well, definitely thank you for the interview. I meant to say that in the beginning. Thank you for the interview, and I appreciate uh being a part of this project. I really do. I mean, more than you know. You know what I'm saying? I really appreciate it because had this project been done without me, I would have felt some type of way. I ain't gonna lie, you know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
like, man, you know what I'm saying? Like I was, you know what I'm saying? I worked really hard, you know what I'm saying, on Jefferson Street and to pioneer the spoken word scene. I've done a lot, and I feel like it's only right that that I be included, man. So thank you. I'm really humbled by it, and I really appreciate it. So, much love to this project, and let me know if there's anything else that I can contribute, or if you have any questions. I got a lot of history here. I got a lot of history, man. So if anything that you want to know, uh, um, anything, it's one of those thoughts when you have a pen, you got to write it down because you're gonna forget it. Excuse me for a second. This is for the poem, as a matter of fact. I was
Yeah.
trying to think, yeah, I just thought about this, the name of this spot. So anyway, so yeah, man, anything that you need from me, anything that you may want to ask or anything that you may want to know, feel free to contact me anytime and feel free to hit me up and and I give you the history that I know. But it's been fun and it's been great and I will leave you on these last thoughts. I feel like that Jefferson is the heartbeat of Nashville to me.
Mhm.
Jefferson is the heartbeat of Nashville. Nashville, without Jefferson Street, Nashville would really be a really country, slow. It wouldn't have no culture at all. Jefferson Street is really the heartbeat to me that really keeps the city kind of cool and have a little swag to it. Jefferson Street is that street. So I'm gonna leave on those last words. That's just my opinion. Yeah, I'm gonna leave on those last words, man. And we can end the interview if you like.
Yeah. I gotta I'm gonna stop recording now. Let's see.